Hello and welcome to City Beat. I'm your host Greg from the Lewiston City Library. Joining me today is Dan Johnson, the Solid Waste Manager from the City of Lewiston Sanitation Department. How are you doing today, Dan?
I'm doing well, Greg. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. So what are we going to talk about today? Some of the services provided here?
Talk about garbage here at the City of Lewiston.
Talk about garbage.
Yeah. City of Lewiston offers what's called an integrated solid waste management system consisting of recycling, reuse, collection, and then ultimately disposal of those materials. And this system provides a safe and reliable services and I might add at a competitive price for both our residential and commercial customers.
Great, and so let's talk a little bit about each of these services and what is involved with them and how it all works within the city and for the citizens.
Okay, you bet. Well, we'll start with collection. That's what most folks are familiar with, curbside. We put our garbage out. It's picked up by Sunshine Disposal. That's our contractor. It's hauled to the transfer station, and from there we take it to a disposal site, which is a Asokan County landfill currently. And there's some do's and don'ts that we like to talk about with the residential program. For example, we want you to have that card out by 7 o'clock in the morning so you don't get missed. If you're setting a recycling card out, we'd like to have those about 3 feet apart from each other, so if there's an automated truck that comes by and picks that garbage can up, that he's got room with that claw, you know, to reach out there and grab that cart, and then he can dump it and set it down with having any other problems.
So that's a little bit of the residential garbage collection. What about commercial? What are the differences?
Good question. The commercial customers actually can subscribe to a commercial cart service if it's approved, and they just need to contact the city or Sunshine Disposal and see if they can have that service. Those that don't typically have a container, you'll see those blue containers placed around the city, and they come in 1-yarders on up to 8-yard capacity, and they're heavy gauge steel, and they're typically serviced with a front load type vehicle that comes in and actually approaches that container from the front. It picks it up and dumps it and sets it back down. Some of our commercial customers have what are called roll-off containers. They're very large. They almost look like a shoebox, you know, and they're large and they have a top on them. And that might be used, say, at like some of our commercial type construction sites if they have a big project going on, or we even have some larger residential facilities like a large apartment or condominium type complex where folks may put their garbage into that, and then it gets serviced at least once a week. And then some of our businesses have what are called compaction containers, and those are owned by the business but serviced by the city contractor. A good example would be a lot of our food establishments have those.
Great. Let's go back to residential garbage just for a minute, because I just had a few things popped in my mind. So let's say you have a big birthday party or something. Are there things that people should not throw in their garbage to be picked up? And also, what if you have more than usual? What should you do with that?
Yeah, another good question. We see that a lot out on the streets. If you drive around, you see that. Most of the household garbage can go into the cart that they have set out curbside. If they have liquids, we'd prefer that they dump those liquids out down the drain. You know, if you have maybe some leftover juices or something like that, instead of putting into the garbage for a couple of reasons. One of them, it makes it messy, especially when it gets to the transfer station, but it also means more weight that we ship to the landfill, and with more weight comes more cost. So that's a good way for us to control that system. The other thing is we may have some materials that we wouldn't accept from the household. Let's say you had certain types of chemicals or hazardous materials. Those would have to be hauled to the transfer station. Now, the example you gave was the birthday party. All of that would be eligible to put in the cart. If you have excess materials, it's important that they contact Sunshine Disposal at least one day ahead of time and say, hey, I'm going to place some extra bags out tomorrow, and ask them to pick those up. We don't want them setting them on top of the cart. A couple of reasons: they get knocked over, whether it's an animal, the wind, or maybe the contractor comes by with that automated vehicle and tries to pick it up and it falls on the ground instead of in the truck, and then we have a mess to clean up. There is a charge for that. It's not included with the regular garbage cart service, so but we do provide that.
Oh, okay. And mentioning charges and stuff, how do we figure rates? How are they set for average citizen Joe like myself?
Okay. The City of Lewiston City Council sets the rates for the residential and the commercial customers here in Lewiston. And we have not changed our rates for a long time. And in fact, if you go back over the last 7-8 years, we've lowered our rates. So we've been very fortunate that we've been able to control our costs like that. But under contract with Sunshine Disposal, we have a certain price we have to pay them, and that gets inflated annually. So the contractor costs may go up. We would have to pay them more for their services. But what the resident or the commercial customer pays for that has not gone up actually in several years. So.
Well, that's great, and that's fantastic for the community.
It's been very good.
And okay, so we talked about garbage collection. Let's touch on another. This is something that I do a lot personally, is recycling, and then that as a service offered by the city.
It's a great service that we have. A couple of years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, we converted from a blue bin system to a blue cart system. And we used to have those 14-gallon bins that you'd have to carry out, and you'd have to separate the garbage. So you'd put cardboard in one, maybe plastic in another, tin cans in another. And when the garbage contractor came by, they'd pick those up and dump them into separated bins on the truck. Now we have what's called single stream recycling. So all those materials can be mixed into one cart. And it's serviced by an automated vehicle. They come by, and again, that claw reaches out, grabs that cart, and it dumps it in there and puts it back down and goes on to the next home. And the types of materials that we accept in the single stream program are very similar to the 14-gallon blue bin system we used to have. And in fact, we take more. But one of the challenges that we've had is that sometimes there's some things that we don't accept for recycling that get thrown in there, and then it's a contamination issue. So we have guidelines posted on our website that talk about that. But most anything we have in the household is recyclable with few exceptions.
And what are some of those exceptions, just briefly? What are some things I should really avoid throwing in there? Because I really enjoy the single stream recycling myself and utilize it. That's our fullest bin in the house typically every single week.
Probably some of the biggest contamination items we get are like plastic bags. You get those little plastic bags from Albertsons, or Safeway, or one of the other stores that we shop for groceries, Rosauers and so forth. And those bags we don't accept in single stream, and it has to do with when it goes to the facility where it's actually sorted, it creates a problem. It ties up the machines and stuff like that. So those types of plastic we would not accept. If you're putting in, let's say, cans, or let's say a pizza box would be a good example. It's cardboard, and we'd like to have that in the recycling stream. But we would ask that we would clean all the food off of that first, scrape the food particles off and minimize that. Otherwise, again, it creates a contamination issue. So primarily the plastic type, sheeting plastics, the bags, things like that, and then food contamination. Those are probably the two big ones that we get.
The two big ones. And then in addition to that, glass is no longer accepted within the single stream recycling, correct?
Good point. We have glass bins situated around the city at 3 locations, one at Rosauers, one at A&B Foods, and then we have one at the transfer station. And that the glass that we collect is never really 100% recycled. We reuse it, and that's why I said in my opening comments, it's kind of a recycle, reuse, collection, and then ultimately disposal. And at one time we were crushing that glass and using it in different projects. We're currently not crushing that glass. It is taken up to the inert landfill, and they crush it with the tractors basically, and they mix it in with the road gravel, and that's how it's being reused. So, in the end, it does get buried that way, I guess, but we're getting a little more life out of that glass. And so, no, you cannot put it in single stream recycling, but yes, you can take it to one of those locations, and then we'll try to get more life out of it.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of a common misconception some people have, is that glass can be recycled, but it can't go into single stream recycling. Want to keep that separate. Now, is there anything different for commercial versus residential as far as the recycling program goes?
The City of Lewiston currently does not offer a commercial recycling program, but we have at least 3 recyclers in the valley that do provide those services. Sunshine Disposal offers commercial recycling services, Lewis Clark Recyclers, and then also Pacific Steel and Recycling. So if our customers would want to call them and ask them what types of materials they may accept, that would be good.
And another service that we mentioned early on is yard waste. This time of year, throughout the year here in the valley, we're very fortunate with good weather, and so year-round I tend to have yard waste. how does the city yard waste program work, and what are some do's and don'ts that folks should be aware of?
I think this is a program where we get the biggest bang for our buck in the city of Lewiston. When you look at the price, the monthly price that somebody pays for their solid waste services, for example, if you have a 64-gallon cart, you're going to pay just over $18 a month for that service. So that includes the curbside pickup of your garbage, weekly service, and bi-weekly service with the recycling. The yard waste is a weekly service for most of the year. During the winter months, it goes to 1 week a month. But it's an unlimited service. So if you had 10, 15, 20 cans that you wanted to put out for garbage or for yard waste collection, you can do that. And it's picked up without limit. Now, when you do that, the cans can exceed 50 pounds, that they have to be between 20 and 32 gallons in size, these kind of things, because it's all picked up manually. And we don't want somebody getting hurt when they do that. But we accept most yard waste things. We don't want animal feces in or things like that. If you have stumps or things like that that you dig up, you can take that to one of the landfills in the area, and they'll take those. But otherwise, it's been a very good service. And then, of course, as you know, we take that from the curbside to our composting facility.
And then I really enjoy that service as well. And you mentioned, yard waste. Sometimes, like myself, I get a tree branch blows down, and I try to process it as much as I can at home. Is there any size limitations that folks should be aware of when they're putting, larger branches? Nothing too big, too long. Are there any of those limitations that folks should be aware of?
You've got a lot of good questions this morning, Greg. With the yard waste program, and the branch as an example, we'll take up to 6 inches in diameter curbside.
That's pretty big.
But no longer than 4 feet. So they can pick up and handle it. So if they have items bigger than that, then it needs to be taken directly to the compost facility, and they'll take larger sizes there and longer lengths. If you have, say, branches and stuff that you want to tie up curbside, they'll take up to 2-foot diameter bundle of branches. So if you lay it on the ground, you have 4-foot length branches, and they're maybe inch, 2 inches, whatever. Tie that up into a 2-foot bundle. Use a string, not like a plastic baling twine or something like that, but use something that can go through the composting facility like a natural rope, and they'll pick those up also.
That's, I think, a fantastic service. I don't have a big yard, but I utilize that one quite a bit. As far as yard waste, commercial waste, is there much of that here in the valley at all?
We actually do quite a bit. And it tends to be by section of the town. So some areas of town don't have large yards, they don't put out a lot, but certainly up in the orchards area for sure, where we have some of the larger acreages, if you will, folks have animals and things like that. We collect quite a bit of yard waste up there. Now, commercial customer, if they would like to have yard waste service, they have to call Sunshine Disposal and arrange for that service. That's not something that's included in their monthly fees.
Dan, we just have a couple minutes left here. So is there anything else that we haven't got to touch bases on yet that you'd really like to tell folks about?
Maybe I'll just briefly mention our transfer station. It's located on Downriver Road in North Lewiston on Colonel Powell. It's Colonel Rightway. It has a new name up there, but that facility is for larger items that folks can't recycle or dispose of curbside. So let's say a couch or something like that, or an appliance, those kind of things. You can take those up to the transfer station. Bring a copy of your city utility bill. We like to see that, that has your name and service address where it's coming from. And that's true for our county customers also, because we have an arrangement with them. They can take those types of materials there. If they have some of the moderate risk waste that we manage up there, like used motor oil, car batteries, antifreeze, things like that, they can take that up there and we'll process it. Latex paints, things like that. If we have materials that are more hazardous or in greater volumes, those have to be hauled directly to the landfill in Asotin County.
Well, and that's good to know, especially if you've got a project going on at home, you've got some leftover paints, where to take them. So, last question, how do people contact you if they have more questions than what we've gone over today? What's the best way?
Okay, cityoflewiston.org is the website, and if they get onto the website, you can go to the drop-down menus down under Public Works, the Department of Public Works, and you can find all the sanitation services that we offer. I guess, call us. The direct line is 746-1316. That's the office number at Public Works. If folks have questions on their service, missed service, let's say they missed it and they need help with that, they can call Sunshine Disposal. I gave you the number at 743-4075, but all that information is on our website.
That's a great resource. Well, as always, Dan, it's been great having you on the show. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Greg.
And for the rest of you, thank you for joining us today. We hope you have a fantastic day, and we'll see you next time on City Beat.